Early JK with a L86 LT and a 10-speed. This was an easy build and the kind of build that we like to do. Lately we've been getting so many highly optioned JKs with custom chassis and axles and suspensions and long arms, and just takes a lot of extra time, especially the electronic stuff when the JK is packed with electronics and it's all done wrong and we have to fight every inch of it. But this was an easy build. Now this JK does have a little roll bar and some other things on it, but it's very conservative. It's got some AEV wheels on it. It's got this AEV bumper with the internal storage for water, gas, whatever, I guess. Pretty clean Jeep, drives really nice. L86 has plenty of power for this JK. Let's take a quick look under the hood. L86 is a lot of engine. This has got the LT1 intake on it, Motic battery tray. We got stock power steering, it looks like, no PSC on this one. Pretty typical build. Thought I'd do a little video from inside the cab. We're in an early model JK with an L86 10-speed. We're in 4-low and we're in first gear. Now guys, here's the problem I think with tap shift on the cruise lever. Look where the cruise lever is. So now I've got a tap shift. We're gonna go into second. And I think you can see that can be a little confusing if you're spinning the wheel around. So this JK is refreshing. Now I got to go into third, but you can see I've got the wheel turned. This JK is quite refreshing for several reasons. One, it's an early JK, which I think are simpler and I like them. Two, it's clean. Yes, it has a roll bar and it has a CB, but as far as the conversion goes, it was really easy. It didn't have dual S pods. It didn't have air compressors and rock lights and roof racks, and it has an AEV bumper and some AEV wheels, but really all my guys did was pulled a couple of connectors and e-brake cables and lifted the body off. And for those of you that aren't familiar with tap shift, let's take a quick look at it. Right now I'm in third gear. We have the shifter and manual gate. So we have this set for the cruise control to shift. So if you look at the dash, you can see I can shift all the way up to 6th with the cruise. I want to be, well actually we're going to be going down a little ledge here. So let's keep it in third, then we'll drop into second, and then first, going down this ledge. But because we're using the cruise lever doesn't mean we lose cruise control. We have what's called tap and shift, or I'm sorry, tap and cruise. And what tap and cruise does, now here, you can see the wheel is spun over here. I want to go into first, second, first, and you see how responsive tap shift is. Now that's going to let us gently go down this grade without having to apply the brakes. So tap and cruise means that when you're in the manual gate, you can use the cruise control lever to tap up and down through the gears. If you want to have cruise control with tap shift, you put it back into drive. In fact, I'll do that here in just a second. You put it back into drive. You set the speed that you want. Now I'm going a little bit too slow, so I'm going to tap shift up to second. Actually, I want to go to third. And I think you can see that this wheel spinning around is a lot more difficult than a fixed switch, like let's say in the steering column. Actually, right now, I'm going to go at a 4-wheel drive, and I think you can see how bumpy this can get inside. So we're going to go into neutral. We're in 2 high, and off we go. Tap and cruise. Let me see if I can describe it a little more in detail. The MoCAN module has several ways to input the tap shift command into the GM system. First is CAN. We can do it over the CAN network. So if we have a CAN signal from, let's say, an SLP or a shift lever position sensor, which some of the Jeeps run, we can feed that directly into the GM system and you have tap shift in that mode. We have a couple of external inputs. If you want to run a toggle switch or a rocker switch like GM does, we supply you with a 3-wire harness, the center wire being ground, and then the other 2, when you tap them to ground, will tap shift the transmission. Now remember, you have to be in the manual gate for tap shift to work. If you're in drive or any other gate, tap shift won't work. Third, we can send a message over the CAN network to, let's say, something like a cruise control switch. We can almost use anything, but in this case we're using a cruise control switch because it's convenient. The nice thing about the cruise control switch is if you're on the highway and you're going up a hill or down a grade and you want a compression brake, you want to set your cruise control. Let's say you set it to 70 and you're going down a steep hill, you're towing a trailer, and you're going to overspeed. So what I do in my Denali is I just throw the shift lever back into the manual gate and then use the little rocker switch GM supplies. Now that is available to you. You can use a toggle or a rocker, as I said. However, with the cruise control switch, once you put it into the manual gate, the function of the cruise control switch changes over to tap shift. Now the on off and the cancel still work, so you can turn the cruise control on and off or cancel it. But as far as the speed functions go, it is now your gear selector. So you're going down the hill, you're in 6th gear or 10th gear, whatever, this transmission is 10 gears. You pull it back into the manual gate, you have cruise control active at 70, and what it's going to do is it's going to start dropping the gears 10, 9, 8, whatever you choose for as much compression braking as you need. If you want to set the cruise control to a different speed, simply put it back into drive, select the speed you want, and then put it back into the manual gate, and you can again choose your gear. Now that also helps when you're going up a hill. Like with these 10 speeds, especially on the 5.3, if you're going up a steep grade at 80 miles an hour, it might want to drop back into 9th or 8th. So you can just do that. You can set the speed at 80, put it back into the manual gate, drop it a couple of gears using the tap shift lever, and you'll stay in 8th gear going up that grade. Of course, we support the bump shifter, and I've got a lot of guys switching their early JKs to the bump shifter. I'm not too big of a fan of the bump shifter. I just don't like the way it lays out, especially in a stock JK, because you have park, reverse, neutral, drive. Once you're in drive, that's bump shift. And I'm off-road. I got stuff bouncing around. I used to have a little dog, you guys remember, and he'd be flying around inside the cab. And every once in a while, he might bump the shifter. So I'm not a big fan of bump shift. What am I a fan of? I am a fan of the toggle switch on the steering column over here. Now this vehicle doesn't have it. But if you're not going to do any off-road driving and you're mainly going to do on-road driving, then the cruise control stock or buttons on the 11 and newer is probably a good way to go, because you're not spinning the wheel around rapidly and you're not going to lose that coordination. So this was a really easy build, and I'm happy to say that the LED6, LED3, LT1 are becoming old hat for us. It was 2016. That's about 7 years ago when these things were brand new to us and almost everybody else. And nobody was running the LTs. Everybody was running the LSs. Of course, Motec took the reins, and in March of 2016, we got our first LT on the road. There was some ambiguity at first about the LT, and GM did go through some learning with those engines, but now they're top of the line. I had a couple of guys call me this week with JLs and JTs, and I told them if they're in a real hurry, just go ahead and get a Hemi, but they own LTs and they know the capability of the LTs, so they want to wait, and I don't blame them. I have a Yukon Denali, and I just drove from Heber City, Utah to Mount Rushmore and back. I don't remember how many miles it was, but it was pushing 1,000 miles. And I averaged 23 miles to the gallon. And that was going the speed limit, which was 80 miles an hour most of the way, carrying a full load inside the vehicle and a little hauler thing on the trailer hitch in the back. And that's fabulous. Now your Jeep is not going to get 23 miles to the gallon. It's not aerodynamic. It doesn't have those small, lightweight tires. So don't expect that. But I do expect these LTs to outperform everything else out there. When you combine an LT with a 10-speed, it's top of the line. So I got to say something about this Jeep. It's a pretty simple Jeep, early Jeep, the way I like it. It's got one of the best powertrains available, and the guy didn't go nuts. It doesn't have a ton of aftermarket stuff on it. And my guys really appreciate that, because with all the custom suspensions and rat wiring and everything else that we deal with on a daily basis, it's just really nice to get a clean Jeep. I think their dream would be just to do new Jeeps all day, where we don't have to fight corrosion and rust and modifications and suspension systems that are wobbly and all that. But most of us need to mod our Jeeps. We need the axle clearance, we need the suspension travel, we want to go on trails with our family, and we want the ride to be acceptable. So we have to mod these Jeeps. We're back on the highway, and I want to explain something that a lot of guys don't understand, and I didn't understand at first. On the LS's, when you pull the shifter back from drive into the manual gate, it pretty much locks it into whatever gear it's in. So if you're in fifth, it's going to drop it back and lock it into fifth. Well, the LTs don't work like that. I don't know why, but GM, this is what they decided to do. And I've experimented with Escalades in my Denali, and they all do the same thing. I haven't found any of them do it different. There might be something out there, an operating system that is different, but you're in drive, the shifter's in drive. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull the shifter back into manual and watch the gear indicator. We're now in sixth. They defaulted at sixth when you're going at the higher speeds. Why? I don't know. Now once you're in sixth, you can do anything you want. You can upshift, you can downshift, or you can just throw it back into drive and you're a full automatic again. When you send your Jeep to us, try to keep it simple. If you've got all sorts of stuff, we've had 2 or 3 Jeeps in the last couple of months that actually took more time to work with the aftermarket accessories and clean things up than the conversion took. So if this video had a point, it would be keep your Jeep simple when you send it to us. If you don't got to bolt all that stuff on, have stuff hanging off all over it, have roof racks on it, and the interior loaded down with stuff, it really helps us out. If you do have all the whiz-bang stuff, you've got dual S-pods and wires going everywhere and pneumatic systems and all that, we'll do our best to work around it, but just understand that's going to take more time, and you're probably going to end up having to pay for that. And I completely understand where guys are coming from, and I do understand that we do have to mod these Jeeps to get them to perform and do what we want them to do. It's refreshing driving this Jeep because it's just such a simple Jeep. It reminds me of my Jeep. It gets the job done with a minimal amount of fuss. But no matter what Jeep you have, putting a V8 in it is going to make it so much funner to drive. It's going to allow you to enjoy driving it on the highway. I put about 1,000 miles a week on these JKs with LTs and LSs, and it's just a dream. When I was driving these JKs with the V6s, it was a nightmare. I didn't want to drive them. I wanted to get out. Now, I must say that the new JLs with the 8-speed is far, far better, and I could enjoy driving one of those. Now, if it was all pimped out with 40s and it weighed 8,000 pounds, maybe not. But a stock JL or JT does the job pretty good. So we're going to wrap this up. We're going to be seeing you soon.